Hello, welcome everyone. Good afternoon. Happy seeing you once again. Today we are beginning a new series, which is Arithmetic of Finance. And under Arithmetic of Finance, which is basically the calculations that is dealing with the financial market, okay, across retail businesses, even onto the federal government of a particular nation. We're going to look at simple interest, and simple interest is divided into two parts because sometimes students make mistakes when they give them questions on simple interest. They don't know when it is simple one-time interest and simple over time interest. All right. Now, when we talk about simple interest, it implies that the negotiation is made per the active capital. All right, the amount of money that you are starting with. It could be the amount of money you borrowed. It could be the amount of money you invested. All right, but how do we know when it's going to be a simple one-time interest or a simple over-time interest? In a simple one-time interest, the interest is calculated just once. That is why it's called simple one-time interest. All right, that's irrespective of the number of years or the number of months that the agreement has been fixed. For instance, a friend walk up to you and asks you for a loan of $1 million naira or $1 million, and say, I'm going to pay back in 2 months. And I say, okay, you're going to give me 10% after 2 months, or please, I'm going to pay you back in 10 years. It's okay, you're going to pay me 10% of whatever you are borrowing in 10 years. All right. So if you look at your rate, you will discover that there is no, if you look at the percentage or the rate rather, you discover there is no time attached to it. You just say 10%. All right. You just say 10% of whatever you borrow, irrespective of the number or the length of the agreement. That is simple one-time interest. So interest is just calculated once over the entire period. So some students, when they give them 5 years, instead of just using the 5 years as instead of neglecting the time, they will include the time as if they're calculating simple over time interest. All right, so that is the difference between a simple one-time interest and a simple over-time interest. Simple over-time interest, as we shall see thereafter, is when the rate is given in per annum. So you can see that your rate is percentage divided by time. There's going to be a time attached to the rate. You will not just see it as in this case, it's just 5% here. All right, you rather in that one, you're going to be seeing 5% per annum, 5% half yearly, 5% per month, per day. All right, that means every day the person is due for interest, or every month the person is due for interest, or every year the person is due for interest. But when you just say 5%, no annum, no duration attached to it, that means it is a simple interest one-time calculation. Let's look at our first example. We're told here that number one, that Benin borrowed 1,500 from Mr. AZUAT and agrees to pay it in 50 days at 5% interest. Calculate the total amount he returned to him at the end of the 50 days. So this is under one-time simple interest. All right. So the principal is 1,500. That is the principal that Benin borrowed, and of course the rate or the percentage is 5%. And this is 5% of the money he borrowed. They did not attach duration to it. So forget about the 50 days that is there and just work with the normal mathematics, all right? Now say that your interest is equals to 5% of the principal, which is 1,500, okay? And that is going to give us 5 over 100 multiplied by 1,500, and 20 eliminate 20. 5 times 15 will give us what? 75. So we have 75 naira. Okay, so what is the amount? They calculate the total amount you're going to pay back. Amount is equals to the interest, all right, plus the principal invested. That will now give us the amount, and the amount will now give us interest, which is 75 naira, plus the principal, which is 1,500. We are now going to have it as 1,575 naira. So this is the money that Benin will return to Mr. AZUAT at the end of the 50 days. Okay, so notice that I did not convert my days to year and all that. I am not doing simple interest. This is just, I'm not doing simple interest over time. All right, that means recurring simple interest, but I'm doing simple interest just once. That's why I call it simple interest one-time investment. All right, example 2. In example 2 here, it says if I loaned 5 million naira from a microfinance bank to set up a business. If he made an agreement to pay back in 5 years with an interest of 20%, you can see that also 5 years, 20%. Calculate the interest at the end of the 5 years. The mistake that many students will make is to come and say interest is equals to PTR over 100. And of course, they'll be heading to failure. Okay, so this is wrong. And of course, the reason once again is because our interest just had only 20%. It's not in rate, all right? The interest is not in rate. As it was in rate, it would be 20% per annum, or 20% per monthly, or 20% per daily or weekly, as the case may be. So since there's no duration attached to the percentage, so it is a simple interest one-time payment. So when I say our interest is just 20% of the principal. Okay, our interest is equals to 20 over 100 multiplied by the principal, which is 5 million. Okay, so we are neglecting the time there because we're not using the 5 years because it's not a simple interest recurrent or simple interest over time. And when we do this calculation, 20 cancel 20 here, we now say 50,000 multiplied by 20, and what do we have? We have 1 million. Okay, so our interest is 1 million naira. That is the interest that Benin, or Ifeanyi rather, is going to give back to the microfinance bank. So that is the interest. The total amount he will pay the bank at the end of the 5 years. Now, at the end of the 5 years, Ifeanyi is returning this amount, the interest, plus the money he borrowed. So the total amount, that is why amount is always the principal plus the interest that has accrued on top of the principal. And that is going to give us amount is equals to 5 million plus 1 million. And when I say that the amount that Ifeanyi will return is what? 6 million naira. That is the amount that Ifeanyi will return at the end of the 5 years. All right. Any question? Any question? Perfect. No question. Well understood. Okay, so this is all about simple interest one time. It's just done one time. And how do you recognize that? That your interest percentage does not have duration attached to it. Okay, now this type of interest is always applicable to short-term agreements, although for mathematical calculations and exams, they can also give you for long-term agreement. However, I have told you how to recognize this type of interest. All right, good. Let's look at the normal simple interest you are used to, which is simple interest over time. All right, now that type of interest usually occur for longer agreements. Okay, and how do you recognize this type of simple interest? The interest percent is always given in rate. That means you see it as 5% per annum. That means yearly, or 20% per half yearly. That means 20% every half year, so on and so forth. 15% per daily, and so on and so forth. So it means that every day you get. Unlike the other one, they do not attach the duration. So it just the duration just counts at once. Whether it is 50 days, it is 1 year, it is 1 million years, it just counts as once. So that is the difference between the simple overtime interest and the simple one-time interest. All right, so this is the one we're used to, and of course, you can see that our rate R is in rate per time, and our time can be in daily, monthly, yearly, etc. However, your rate and your time must be compatible under this type of interest. Okay, your rate and time must be compatible. If your rate is in per annum, that means your time must be converted to per annum. If your rate is in half yearly, means every 6 months, that means your time must also be converted to every 6 months. Okay? The rate determines, or the question will tell you how it should look like, but the time and the rates that you use must be compatible in the formula. All right, so that's the formula there, PTR over 100. Okay? So let's take an example of this simple interest over time. It says Chike invested 45,000 in Zenith Bank. Calculate his total amount after 2.5 years if the bank gives 5% simple interest per annum. 5% simple interest per annum. So our rate is 5% per annum. That means every year. And our time, our T, is equals to 3.5 years. All right. And 3.5 years is 7 over 2 years. Okay. So you can see that our time and our rates are compatible. Then our principal is equals to the amount he invested, 45,000 naira. All right. What are we asked to calculate? Total amount. So we now say that the interest, simple interest, is PTR over 100, and that will give us 45,000 multiplied by time, which is 7 over 2, multiplied by rate, which is 5, over 100 times 2. So you can see that the 2 came down. All right. So when we simplify this, saying 45,000 multiplied by 7 and 5, okay, divided by 200, what we have, we say our interest is equals to 7,875 naira. So that is our interest. What are we asked to calculate? Calculate the total amount. Total amount. So amount of his investment is principal plus the interest that has been generated, and that will give us 45,000 plus 7,875. So what we have, that will give us about something thousand. So the amount is equals to 52,875 naira. Is that taken? All right. Perfect. Perfect. In example 2 of this type, what are we told here? So suppose the River State government is building a pleasure park and issue bonds to raise money to build it. All right. I've already explained what bonds are under this right up here. All right. So you will see the explanation on bonds. Okay. It's like a form of shares that people can get with government and all that. Okay. Issue a bonds to raise money to build it. If they pay 5.5% interest annually means every year, and you obtain 1,000 pounds bond for 4 years, how much will be your interest at the end of the agreed time? Annually, it means that the rate is annually. All right. So our rate is annually, which is 5.5% per annum, and 5.5% per annum is 11 over 2%. All right. And what's our time? Our time is 4 years. Then what is our principal? The principal is equals to 1,000 pounds. So we now say that our interest is PTR over 100, making sure that our time and rate are compatible. Yes, they are compatible per annum. So they are compatible. Okay. And of course, because say annually, that means it takes place every year. So it's not just one time, but rather it's an over time. So when I say our interest is 1,000 pounds multiplied by 4, multiplied by rate 11 over 2, 100 multiplied by 2. So the 2 will come down in the 11 over 2. And when we simplify, we are having 1,000 times 44, okay, divided by 200. All right, we have 220 pounds. So our interest is equals to 220 pounds. That is our interest. Okay, is that what they asked us to find? How much will be your interest at the end of the agreed time. So it's interest that they are asking us, and this is the interest, £220. Is that taken? So basically, they almost follow the same pattern, but what distinguishes overtime and one time is that the overtime will contain duration attached to the percentage. That will tell you that it is taking place. So you need to calculate it for the number of time or for the number of durations. For instance, the duration is 4 years, and it says it's annually. So you have to calculate it for 4 years. Assuming the duration was maybe half yearly and it's for 4 years, that means I have to calculate it for 8 times, because there is 2 halves in 1 year. So that means there are going to be 8 halves in 4 years. All right. So that means we're going to use our time. We're going to convert this year now to months, to half a year, which is 6 months, and to give us 6 months. All right. So remember that your time and your rates must be compatible. Any question? Okay, no question. Let's look at the third example here. So I'm going to make it more advanced now. In question number 3, say favor invested a sum of money which amounts to $20,000 in 78 months. Okay, and what follows? In her account for an investment she made with a bank that offers an annual rate of 3.75. So we have the rate here, annual rate, every year rate, yearly rate, per annum rate. So our rate is 3.75% per annum yearly. So this is automatically simple interest. Okay, it's also mentioned here simple interest. But what I mean by simple interest, the other one is also simple interest, but this is simple interest over time. Okay, recurring simple interest, but it's not compounded. Okay, and when we convert, we are going to have it to as 15/4%, converting to fraction per annum. All right, and what then is our time? Our time is given to us as, when we read, it says it's given to us for how many? For 78 months. So our time is 78 months. So we need to convert this time to years. And 78 divided by 12 will give us 6 years, remaining 6 months. And that will give us 6.5 years. So that will give us 6.5 years. And this is equivalent to, so our time is equivalent to, in fraction, as 13/2 years. That is our time. Then what again? Our amount was given to us. The amount was given to us as 20,000 naira. And the sum invested, the principal, is not given. So we put a question mark. All right, so if you look at this question, it's a favor invested a sum of money, which we don't know, that is this P. All right, which amount to this? That means after the investment, the original amount, which is P, now grew to this amount, $20,000. That means there must be an interest on this, which made it to become this. Okay, so let's read with understanding. In 78 months, in her account and all that, so we say the rate is 3.75 simple interest per annum, the sum invested. So when I say our amount is equals to I plus P, all right? That is our formula for amount. And when we substitute into this formula, we now have 20,000 is equals to I, we don't know, plus P, we don't also know. So this is equation 1. Since we don't know I and P, and of course for mathematical consistency, since there are 2 variables unknown, it means that there must be 2 equations to solve this problem. So how do we form the next equation? What is your I? Of course, we now know that this question is dealing with simple interest. When I say, but our I is equals to PTR over 100, all right? And that implies our I is equals to P unknown multiplied by the time is 13/2 multiplied by the rate is 15/4 over 100. So we're going to have it as 2 times 4 times 100. So that is 13/2 and 15/4 you have there. So when we simplify this, we are going to have it as our I is equals to 195p, so we have it as 195p over 800. So this is our equation 2. Okay, so we now put equation 2 into equation 1. So we say put equation 2 into equation 1. And when we do that, what's our equation 1? Look at it here. So we say 20,000 equals to, instead of I now, we now put 195p over 800 plus p. What do we do at this point? This is fractional equation. So we clear fraction by the LCD. Okay? Multiply both sides by 800. So we clear fraction. And what we mean by clearing of fraction, this is converting fractional equation to whole number equation. So we multiply both sides by 800. So we're going to have 800 multiplied by 20,000 is equals to 800 multiplied by 195p over 800. Okay, then plus p multiplied by 800. So we have multiplied both sides by 800, both sides of this equation by 800. And you can see that when this one cancels this, everything will now become a whole number equation. So this one will give us 16 million equals to 195p plus 800p. And when we add together, we have 16 million is equals to 995p. Dividing both sides by p, we say our p is approximately equals to, since they say to the nearest whole number, okay, so this is 16 million. So when we divide both sides by 995, I want to have 16 million divided by 995. All right, so with your calculating device, what do we have? So can I say that therefore our P is approximately equals to $16,080. So this is the approximate value of P. So it's going to give you in decimal and all that, but they say the approximate value. All right. Okay, so since we have gotten our P, and that is what, calculate the sum invested, and that is the sum invested. So we just got the sum invested as question I. Question II, the next question that follows, what is it saying? Say the interest generated, which is I. So we now say, put P into equation 2 to find the interest generated, because that is where the interest has been defined. See equation 2 here. So we now say our I is equals to 195p over 800, 195, then multiplied by p, which is 16,080 divided by 800. Okay, and what is our I? Our I also is approximately equals to $3,920. So this is the interest generated. No other question. All right, so that is the interest generated for the 6.5 years or the 78 months. Okay. Any question? Any question? All right, perfect. Well understood. All right, so this technically brings us to the end of this episode. All right, so this is just an introduction. Most of the calculations, or most of the time, is going to be spent on compound interest, depreciation, inflation, growth, and other types of investment. Okay. The first episode has been dedicated to refresh our mind on what we learned in elementary school, simple interest. However, we added to you an additional knowledge by reminding you or telling you that simple interest has two parts. Number one, simple over time, when the rate, okay, when the time or when the interest does not have a duration attached to the percentage, okay? So the rate is just existing as ordinary percentage. There is no duration attached to it, because actually rate is defined as percentage over time, okay? And that is the one we encounter in simple interest over time or simple interest recurrent, okay? In recurrent simple interest, okay? So please differentiate the two questions. Check whether the rate given to you or the percentage given to you is actually existing as ordinary percentage or is existing as in the form of rate, that is percentage over time. And if it's existing as a rate, percentage over time, please do well to understand that that is simple interest over time, the one that contains PTR over 100. And also make sure that your time is compatible with your rate. All right? That means you must always convert. We'll see more of this explanation in further episode. But for this episode, it is the end of this episode. Thank you for watching. Do not forget to subscribe to this channel if you haven't. And of course, you can also recommend this video to people that require study material in mathematics to enhance and improve their understanding in mathematics. It is a goodbye from me till we meet in the next episode.